Good afternoon and welcome to a very special meeting of the Glendale City Council being called to order at 2:04 to help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community. City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on GTV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. I hope you got all that. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on the specific agenda item will be taken when the agenda item is discussed. With that, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian. Councilmember Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
And Mayor Brotman. And Mayor Devine, sorry.
Here, thank you. Mayor Brotman, you've been elevated, I guess.
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, been gone too long. All righty, what's next, please?
The agenda for the Tuesday, September 28, 2021 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on September 21st, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And the next item?
Next would be community development regarding direction to negotiate with a single proposer for the lease and management of the Alex Theater, 216 North Brand Boulevard. A motion authorizing staff to terminate a non-exclusive negotiations with 3 proposers for the lease and management of the Alex Theater and provide directions to commence exclusive negotiations with a single proposer.
Thank you. Mr. Tactalian?
Thank you, Mayor Devine. I'm just going to go directly over to Bradley Calvert, Assistant Director of Community Development, to provide you the presentation.
Excuse me. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and members of the City Council. We are before you today to seek direction on negotiating with a single proposer regarding the lease and management of the Alex Theater. Just a quick overview. We would like to provide excuse me, some background on where we have been, where we are today, including a past timeline. We have revised proposals to discuss from the 3 proposers for management of the Alex Theater, and that includes Glendale Arts, SAS, and General Admissions. During this period, we also conducted a balcony safety assessment, which will give some background information on that as well, and then seeking direction to negotiate with a single proposer. Just an overview and where we've been, excuse me, an RFP was issued to identify potential managers of the Alex Theater. Staff was directed by council to negotiate with Glendale Arts in April of 2021 regarding entering into an agreement for the management of the theater. By about July of 2021, we had essentially reached an impasse. That was regarding the management fee, the overall dollars that would be spent towards managing the theater, and that was presented to City Council in July of 2021. Staff had requested direction from council on whether or not to continue negotiations with other proposers, and council directed staff to re-enter those discussions with all 3. The 3 proposers were asked to provide revised proposals. Before doing so, we conducted a tour of the Alex Theater. Because of COVID-19, not all of those that provided responses to the RFP were able to have access to the theater to assess its condition, some of the equipment that was there, some of the improvements that may or may not need to be made. So during that time, staff gave tours along with Glendale Arts assistance and participation to the other 2 proposers, so they had a chance and opportunity to see the theater. The 3 proposers were also asked to provide updated numbers, essentially what they would propose for a management fee, any capital improvements that needed to be made, if there was any proposed revenue share as part of their proposal, or any other additional cost they saw, particularly after visiting the theater and being able to see its existing state and condition. Following that tour, some discussions were had regarding the condition of the Alex Theater balcony. There were some concerns that were raised by some of the proposers regarding the safety and potentially code compliance of the theater. This was largely centered around the inconsistent stair configuration on the balcony level, kind of low quality lighting, the handrails, the carpeting, the condition of the carpeting, the potential trip hazard that may pose. So staff requested a safety analysis to be completed. We wanted to understand what were the kind of the full extent of improvements that may need to be made to the theater. Did this require an overhaul of the entire balcony? Were there more modest improvements that could be made to really improve the safety of the balcony and its usability overall? As part of that, 3 alternatives were developed. The first alternative is looking to correct what we consider maybe safety deficiencies or things just to improve the overall quality and standard of the balcony. This would include replacing all carpeting in the balcony. Some had been peeling, a little warped, that could present a trip hazard. Replace handrails and install underside lighting on those handrails. Install downlights on the sides of the aisles, again trying to illuminate the stairs and all exitways and pathways. And to install lighting on the stair nosing, recognizing that there may be some inconsistencies in the rise and run, and this would improve the visibility and the safety overall. Those costs are estimated to be between $250,000 and $500,000 to make those improvements. Alternative 2 was to rebuild the entire balcony, and that would be to strip it down to its structure and rebuild. Modernizing the theater and the balcony. This would be an extremely significant undertaking. It may also trigger a number of other improvements that would need to be completed as part of that. That could include incorporation of an elevator, other accessibility issues that may need to be addressed per the valuation of the balcony rebuild. The consultant team that looked at these 3 alternatives had advised that the balcony does meet code at the time it was built. That the rebuilding the entire balcony would not provide a noticeable financial or experiential return for somebody who is using the Alex Theater. That was, as mentioned, was a significant undertaking. That could be between $6 and $12 million. When we first presented the initial revised proposals, we had estimated that to be around $6 million for that cost. Alternative 3 would be to install an elevator, and this would provide access to all levels. This would be a significant improvement in comfort for patrons and would mitigate some of those safety concerns of the balcony. This would be extremely challenging to incorporate into the existing layout, though. Existing structure, existing seats, any kind of reconfiguration, changes, anything that would need to be moved around to incorporate this elevator, and also where to place it just in general. It would have significant structural impacts, though it would increase, again, the comfort of patrons. That cost is expected to be between $2 and $5 million. It was recommended by the consultant team that alternative 1 would be the best option, the $250,000 to $500,000. So we spoke with the proposers to see if that was a satisfactory improvement. Would that mitigate any concerns regarding safety, usability? And it was agreed that that would be a sufficient level of improvement for the balcony. So what we've done with these revised proposals is incorporated a $500,000 cost to improve that balcony on all 3 proposers, assuming that this is something that we would need to do regardless of who the manager of the theater is. So the first is Glendale Arts. Their revised proposal was for a management fee of $250,000 per year over a 10-year period. They're asking for $1.5 million in city capital improvements. Highlighted in red there is the $500,000 to make the balcony improvements per the safety assessment. There's also consideration for another $3 million worth of capital improvements. This would be pursued as proposed by Glendale Arts as a joint venture by the city and Glendale Arts to pursue grant funding, utilizing that nonprofit designation to be able to obtain grants to make all other necessary improvements as part of capital improvements. So the total city contribution over a 10-year period would be about $4.5 million. The second is from SAS. They are not requesting a management fee, but they are asking for $4.5 million in capital improvements to be made to the theater. They are also proposing that a facility fee fund would be applied to any tickets sold, estimated between $2 and $4 per ticket, which would generate approximately $350,000 to $500,000 revenue per year based on their projections of attendance. This is an effort to offset the cost, defray the cost of any capital improvements that could be made. Highlighted in red there are the other major improvements. That includes the $500,000 to improve the balcony, as highlighted from Alternative 1, an additional $300,000 to make improvements to the existing concession area as well as the green room. These were two things that they did feel were important to improve, and that's reflected in this cost along with the $500,000. They're also requesting $125,000 annually to cover utility costs for the theater for a total of $1.25 million over 10 years. They're also requesting $200,000 from the city to purchase some of the equipment that is part of the theater today. So the total city contribution would be $6.75 million over a period of 10 years. If the facility fund fee achieves what they estimate, that would return approximately $5 million back to the city over that 10-year period and would lower that total 10-year dollar amount to $1.75 million. And the third, general admissions. Their management fee, they're requesting $400,000 in the first year. There were certain things that they felt were important to improve early on to achieve optimal performance of the theater going forward, and then requesting $150,000 each year for the subsequent 9 years. They're also asking for a total of $312,000 in city capital improvements. You can see highlighted in red again the balcony improvements from Alternative 1. They're estimating $3 million of capital improvement projects that would be completed, not at the expense of the city. And they are also proposing a revenue share of $150,000 per year, or 50% of the first $300,000 earned. So the total city contribution would be $2,062,000 over a 10-year period. With their proposed revenue share, if that met their expectations, that would be $1,062,000 over a 10-year period. Just highlighting the three of those in a table side by side, you can see the total cost to the city. Glendale Arts, $4.5 million. SAS, assuming that they achieve the facility fund that's been anticipated, $1.75 million. General admission, if they made the proposed revenue share, as they have highlighted, $1,062,000. So some key elements just to touch on for each one. SAS Entertainment, they are a commercial operator. The type of programming, they're looking to a focus with music, but that would also include some performing arts through resident companies. They are proposing, per their original proposal, a discount program, 25%. Not specified as a discount program for resident companies. I will also add that any questions that council may have, we do have all three of the vendors on the line that will be able to answer some additional questions as well. Some of their experience managing similar venues, the Historic Orpheum Theater, the Ace Theater, the Historic Saban Theater, and the Cerritos Center for Performing Arts. And you can see the years that they managed that to the right. For Glendale Arts, they are a nonprofit operator, as highlighted. That is part of their capital improvement proposal, is to utilize that advantage to pursue grant funding with the city in order to accomplish that. They have offered a wide range of performing arts and community arts, really with that kind of focus on diversity and programming, much of it community-based as well. They do offer a discount program for nonprofit and community organizations at 15%, as well as 35% for resident companies. They are the current manager of the theater. They've been so since 2008, and offer that kind of diversity in programming and kind of community-oriented events. And then lastly, general admissions. They are also a commercial operator. They are looking for a similar style of programming, a wide range of performing arts and community groups similar to that of Glendale Arts, and backfilling some of that with more entertainment, maybe music related, really with a focus on trying to fill dates, most importantly, take advantage of all available dates for the theater. As you can see, they also offer discounted programs for nonprofits, 12.5%, 25% for resident companies. They have managed performing arts education centers since 2012, then producing director as well for LA's Reprise Theater Company. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. As stated, members from General Admissions, Glendale Arts, SAS are all here to answer any additional questions and add any additional information.
Thank you, Bradley. Do any of my colleagues have questions at this point? Then we'll take phone calls.
Yes, I have a question.
Councilmember Agajanian? Go ahead.
In the report, I have problem with what has been written as balcony improvement for two of the, the companies that came forward, and on the other one, because when you make a report, in my opinion, you have to make it such that is same thing to be presented same way. When on balcony improvement is 500,000, we go other major improvements for SAS, renovated concession areas, and so this is what we want to do. What we want to do, we want to improve. We are going to spend 500,000. So in order to compare one offer with the other, that's the way I look at. That's the way I provided the reports. We can't put different issues on when we want to compare, to add or take out some of the offers. We have to say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we want you to do. This is, if I want to compare with, let's say, SAS with Glendale Arts or the other company, it should be ask them the same thing. Then it will be easier to compare. If you add different issues to the project, so obviously they will react differently. The other issue I have here is the Glendale Arts CIP that has been written here, and then for the other company has been written city capital improvement. So this makes it difficult to compare one of the proposals to the other proposal. So I was thinking that we will say, this is what we want to be done. So what's your offer? Not to leave it to everybody to put his or her information in it and make it harder to compare. That's where I'm looking at. As I said, it's been something that I have done in my past, and they will give you certain way, and then you respond to it. I don't know if you want to answer. This is just a statement, probably. Anyway, thank you.
So, Councilmember Agajanian, then what I understand you as saying is that you'd like to see a like comparison in capital improvements funding for each one. And Mr. Calvert, can you give that to us?
Yeah, it would be that way. Now I can understand when they are explaining. I understand what it is now. But as I said, generally when you send for an offer, you ask them for the same thing. You don't let them to put other items in it, to inject other items in it. But anyway, to me it's clear what's going on, but however, this was general statement. When you go for offers, it has to be categorized same way. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other council members? Questions?
I do have some questions, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Brotman, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to start off with SAS, if I could ask them some questions. Are they on the line? What do we need to do there?
They are all on the
I'm
line.
here.
So,
Miles-
yeah, it's up to the
Miles
council
Williams?
whether you want to, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, if you want to have each of the proposers make a statement and then ask questions, or if you want to just go ahead and directly answer questions. I don't, we had them join the WebEx as opposed to calling in because we anticipate you'll have questions and even there might be some back and forth, so it's up to you. It just,
And I have specific questions, so.
Well, let's let the council ask questions, and then let's see where we go from there. Go
Okay,
ahead, Councilmember Brotman.
okay. So, and I'm asking, is it Miles, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I looked on your website and your Facebook, and you described yourself as a technical management and staffing company. Another place I saw you describe yourself as a technical labor company. Could you explain what that means?
I started the company 20 years ago, and my primary focus was in providing technical coordination and management for the Orpheum Theater. And that had been my background at Cerritos. I was in the management administrative staff there for all those years, but that was my background. And so that was a focus of our company. Eventually, we did get into full venue management with the onset of the Saban Theater, and our relationship with the theater at the Ace Hotel includes management over all of the staff, providing all of the coordination. They essentially book a show and hand it off to us to accomplish, which is basically the similar way to what happens at the Orpheum. They have their own, the owner actually is the person who books the Orpheum, and he vends out the entire operation to us and the security vendor. And that's basically how, does that answer your question for the most part?
Well, I want to drill into that a little bit more. So, for instance, at the Orpheum and the Alex, do you do the box office and ticket collection? Do you do custodial? Do you do concessions? Do you generally market the venue to, potential, what do I call it? Production companies? Do you do all of those things? And do you, for instance, do project management? Do you do the historic preservation of these buildings? Things like that.
Okay, so beginning with what you asked about box office, custodial, we use vendors for those. There are separate vendors for custodial, security. We do handle the box office at the theater at the Ace Hotel. The overall, what the Alex management looks like in our history is what we did at the Saban Theater, where it was an all-in contract. So venue management and operational management can look like a lot of different things. So as far as promoting each venue, we do engage with the wider production community, both in television, film, and in concerts. As representatives of those venues, we attend all of the scouts where people are looking to do their shows there. We engage directly and contract directly with major promoters, Live Nation, and Anschutz Entertainment Group, Golden Voice, Niederlander. We do have ongoing, decades-long relationships with all of those in the context of managing our part of these venues' operations.
So in terms of kind of the soup to nuts management of the venue that we want for the Alex, you've basically done that at the Saban, and you did that for 3 years at the Saban, is that right? Because I saw you described that you were doing, I think, technical management and staffing, but then in your last 3 years with the Saban, you did formal general management and operations. So is it correct to say that your experience doing the kind of thing we're looking for you to do is 3 years at the Saban?
I wouldn't characterize that it that way at all. The experience at the Saban when it changed ownership at the beginning of our tenure, I was operating as the only professional person on site, and I negotiated contracts with all the incoming shows, and that was at the very beginning until the end of 2012. So that was not, and relationships kind of can, change and adjust a little over time with other staff and the owners having different participations. But I would say that for the most part, we have been very well prepared to do what you guys are asking there at the Alex for many years. Our relationship with the industry has been really significant in all of these venues. Particularly at the Saban, though, the soup to nuts that you described was there for the most part for the entire tenure.
Okay, but you describe it differently in your, I think, your website, where you make a distinction. You say the last 3 years were formal general management, and
We
operations?
negotiated a contract with them and worked off of that primary contract for several years before that.
Okay.
The ownership was a synagogue and very kind of new at owning a venue. They just purchased it from the Nederlanders. And so we operated without a formal contract there for several years before we actually were able to finalize that contract, which is what that's referring to.
Uh-huh. And what happened at the end of that 3 years? Why are you no longer affiliated with them?
Well, there was an opportunity coming up at the theater at the Ace Hotel, as well as it seemed as if there was a different direction that they wanted to go that I was not able to go with them. So we parted ways.
Okay. Let me ask you about this return fee. Can you talk about the mechanics of that return fee?
Sure.
How, and to what extent is that guaranteed for Glendale?
For Glendale, okay, sure. So I believe that ticket fees, like to the public, they don't really like the face value of the ticket to go up that much, and you certainly don't want to make a facility fee something that's an onerous thing to add onto tickets. So I like to scale the facility fee from $2 for a least expensive ticket, so like a $20 ticket, that might be a $2 fee, and an over $50 ticket would be a $4 fee. I base that estimate at 60% capacity for shows that are for an average of, I believe it would have been about 180 shows a year is what I base that estimate on. That's where the number came from. As far as, did you ask about guaranteeing that to the city? Is that what you asked?
Well, yeah. Well, before we get there, I mean, so basically if I buy a ticket, there's going to be something on the ticket, there's going to be a charge called a facility fee?
Yes, that's the way venues typically do it, historic venues in particular. They like the language or the verbiage of facility fee lets the audience understand that they're supporting the maintenance and the improvements of historic facilities.
But in
That's the way
fact,
it's
in
done
this
at the
case,
Orpheum Ace.
in this case, that's not what's happening. In this case, that money is just coming back to Glendale.
Well, to pay for the maintenance and capital improvements.
I think, let me ask staff, that just comes back to the general fund, is that right?
It is intended to offset the requested capital improvements that SAS has made. That
But it comes
facility
back to the
fee will come
general
back.
fund.
Correct.
And we're describing it here in the charts as offsetting our cost.
It would offset the cost of the capital
Right,
improvements that would be
right.
made, yes.
Okay. All right. And then, yeah, to what extent is that something we can bank on?
Well, I wouldn't have put it in there if I didn't think it was possible. It is only based upon the 60% attendance. Downtown, our attendance numbers are quite a bit higher, 85, 90%.
Okay. And then the resident companies, now there I believe 6 resident companies right now at the Alex. Are you going to be able to offer them the same or similar terms and conditions as they're getting now so that we can be sure that they're able to afford to continue producing shows at the Alex?
Yes, sir. In my prepared comments, I actually do address that because it has been, I believe, kind of misrepresented that we would, by coming in, that the resident companies and other previous clients of the venue would have a difficult time affording what we're about to do. It is in our best interest to have them stay. I do believe that we'll be able to offer them comparable costs, if not possibly even less costs. Additionally, since we are going to be programming the venue, we would include them in some of what our marketing purchases are, because we would market some of their shows along with what shows we're doing. And so we would actually hope to enhance their status and increase their ticket sales through our activities. So they're very much a part of our plans.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it there for now. I wanted to ask similar questions to general admission, if I could.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, could you also, hopefully you you heard that conversation just now. I'm really looking to see what your experience is relative to the task that's ahead if you were to get this opportunity at the Alex. Are you in your current, so I understand that you're currently managing some high school stage productions, some high school theaters. Maybe you could explain a little bit more what you're managing today and how that compares to what you would be doing at the Alex.
My experience with the Performing Arts Education Centers is there two.
Oh, could you turn your volume up a little bit? Or is there a way to?
Of course. Is that better?
Not really.
Not great.
My experience with, I'm sorry? Still too low?
Can you get closer to your microphone, please?
Sure. Sorry about that. 1 second. All right, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so my experience with the Performing Arts Education Centers is they were two $19 million each theater complexes that were built new and opened in 2013. So in terms of the management of those spaces, I was responsible with my team for every aspect of operating the theater, from maintenance, box office, partnering with the school district for custodial, scheduling. I also was in charge of the Beacon for the Arts Fund, which was a nonprofit arm that ran parallel to the theaters. And we booked different acts to do benefit events to support the theater. We booked Jason Alexander, who did a new show for us. In terms of booking high quality talent, when I worked with the Reprise Theater Company, I booked artists such as Betty Buckley, Ray Romano, Barry Manilow, Sutton Foster, Patti LuPone, different artists of that stature where we booked them. My team, I negotiated the contracts. We did all the pre-production, the marketing, and everything associated with presenting them at venues here in LA, including the Saban, the Royce Hall, and the Frood Playhouse on the campus of UCLA. So I do have lots of experience in terms of booking artists of the stature that would make sense and scale to the Alex Theater. In terms of I'm trying to make sure that I understand your specific questions. I took some notes, but the other thing that I bring to the table are the relationships that I have with the people who manage those artists. A lot of my contacts are more theater-based, with David Binder, who's the executive director of BAM in New York City, David Turner, who runs Turner Tompkins Productions, different people who work in management, and they give us access to these different artists in terms of who we need to book. And the challenge is finding the artists that scale to the number of seats we have and that work and make sense within the larger LA marketplace. In terms of the resident companies, the strategy that we've put forward is to take the resident companies and add a criteria to their status as a resident company, asking them to tell us what their programming is a year in advance. And what that would allow us to do is, rather than occasionally mention them in marketing, we want to build a whole marketing strategy around the resident companies Once we know what those events are, we then add the events that we book, and we take the resident company offerings and the high-quality entertainment acts that we book, and we bundle them together into series and subscription series. By understanding what the programming is far enough in advance, we can market basically alongside all the other prominent theaters in Los Angeles. And we, by utilizing the I call them tentpole events, you know, the acts that we book personally as opposed to the resident companies, those tentpole events elevate all the programming and they expand ticket sales in general. And we strategically bundle those together into different series and subscription series. So the strategy that we have and the thing that we think is really essential is to not just budget in terms of a certain number of events a year, but to have a really concrete strategy to continue to grow the number of events and to grow the days of use. Because when those things grow, then there's more facility use fees available. There is more patrons that are leaving the theater, heading out into Brand Boulevard, and everybody wins. But there has to be a strategy to grow over time. And the strategy that we put forward to grow doesn't abandon the resident companies. It really partners with them to utilize them as a foundation in terms of the overall programming and the series that we would put together.
Okay, okay,
The other
thanks.
thing I wanted, sure. The other thing that you mentioned, and I'll confess that I'm a little confused about the facility use fee, because it's my understanding that in the current management agreement, there is a programming and restoration fee, and that's a per ticket fee. And it's as I was going to say in my prepared statements, it's our understanding that the restoration fees are paid by the ticket buyer and they belong to the city of Glendale to use to maintain the theater. That the idea of a facility use fee is something that you've done, as I understand it from reading the current agreement, you've been doing this for years. Our contention is that because we've told the ticket buyers that that fee is going to maintain the building, that money should only be used to maintain the building and not be part of the operational costs. And our projected maintenance over the 10 years is all tied to the amount of money that we collect in those restoration fees and then appropriating them on a year-to-year basis based on how much money we have coming in, and then we pay for the projects that we have scheduled based on when those monies come in. So the proposal, the report states that there's $3 million in projected maintenance costs that would be paid for by general admission. But what we really proposed is to judiciously use the restoration fees so that there's no cost to the city. But if the projects that we propose don't all prove themselves necessary, if there are restoration fees left, they would stay with the theater. The ticket buyers, the citizens of Glendale, contribute that $2 or $3 per ticket with the intention that it's there to maintain the theater. And we believe that that's where it should stay. So I hope I'm answering all your questions. I'm trying to keep track of them.
I have a similar concern about the, what we're calling a facility fee, so we can discuss this later, I guess, but.
Well, how can I allay your concerns?
No, not about what so your revenue share, maybe you can talk about that aspect of your proposal and to what extent that's something that we can bank on.
So the first thing I wanted to correct or to suggest in the report is that we don't actually propose a maximum revenue share. It doesn't stop at $150,000. So the terms of the sharing changes after $300,000 has come in. The idea is that whatever we receive in a facility management fee, we then return 50-50 to the city until that management fee has been returned. And then after that management fee has been returned, any revenue beyond that, we still continue to share that with the city, so that the better general admission does, the more revenue the city will collect. In terms of there being a guarantee, the budget that I provided in the revised proposal is based on just the first 2 years of operation. And the first year, because of the uncertainty of COVID, we projected sales of only 30%. Because I wanted to budget conservatively to not overpromise. And we moved that assumed sales in the second year of the budget we proposed up to, I believe it's 55% sales. And at 55% sales, 55% of the tickets at each of the events, we projected that we would pay back the city's $150,000 of management fee to us, that we would basically bring in around $300,000 in revenue, and $150,000 would stay with general admission, $150,000 would go back to the city to basically cover the management fee for that year. As we move forward from year to year, based on the strategy that we have in terms of marketing and creating these seasons, we assume that the sales, the number of events will increase, and we assume that the percentage sales per event will increase. And as a result, as those increases happen, there's more revenue to share with the city, there is more restoration fee to dedicate to the maintenance and care of the building, and that's why I think the critical element to all this is a strategy for growth that builds up over time. And we don't anticipate hitting a maximum growth until, I think, year 8. And we project sort of small incremental growth year after year. And we're really kind of laser focused on this idea that the best case scenario for the city and the best case scenario for the theater is to just continue to grow the attendance and the number of events, and that's where everybody wins.
Okay, thank you. So that's, I don't, Madam Mayor, I don't have a lot of specific questions for Glendale Arts just because they're here and I know them well. So, but I did want to see if, I mean, I'll leave it to you if you want them to make a statement on anything, because they haven't had a chance. Thanks.
You're on mute, Madam Mayor.
You're mute.
Oh, still on mute.
And we can go to statements from each of the proposals if you'd like, and then ask more questions. Would that be okay with my colleagues? It seems that
Sure,
general admission
sure.
has basically given their
Yeah,
statement.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good, very good. Thank you, Jules.
I do have other additional points to make in my statement, if it's possible for me to read the statement.
Oh, sure. Well, let's do this. Let's start with Nina Crow and Glendale Arts, if my colleagues don't have questions at this very moment. So let's go to Glendale Arts and let them give their proposal, their thoughts about this, and then move on. So Nina Crow.
Thank you, Mayor Devine, City Council members, and city staff. While I do have a lot to say in response to all the wonderful discussion that's been going back and forth, I'd love to just provide my statement at the moment.
Okay.
I am this Chief Executive Officer for Glendale Arts. And recently, one of our resident companies, the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, moved all but one of their contracts from the planned dates at the Alex to the Ambassador in Pasadena because they could no longer tolerate being around the Alex's uncertain future. And that decision means that those 3,300 ticket buyers will now be going to Pasadena, not Glendale, along with their $50,000 worth of economic activity. And that's a lot of money for our neighboring restaurants to miss out on. And I share this story with you to let you know that and request that the city move forward with some direction today, because at some point, the Alex will have an empty calendar, and no matter who the contract is awarded to, many will suffer. So I wanted to bring some attention to the items that were included in the staffing report, because I know that while they may seem revolutionary, they are not. They're already practices that we have. Glendale Arts has an initial architectural drawing and contractor bids to remodel the upstairs reception space into a fully functioning concessions area. It is a $500,000 project at minimum to address properly the constraints of the space. We already also do collect a facility fund, and these funds actually remain with the organization that charges those fees, which would be Glendale Arts, for improvements in the venue. And failure to use these funds in the way that the ticket buyer understands can lead to legal and financial consequences. And we hope that this is a part of the conversation so that you can make informed decisions about the benefit from the different proposals. We have extensive knowledge and experience in both Glendale and the greater Los Angeles market. We're able to attract more than just community. Although we love to attract the locally based artists and organizations, we also drive high profile talent, pop cultural features, and international brands. And we're currently in exclusive talks with a well-known concert promoter to bring in more than 25 acts and performances to the Alex Theater, which include classic rock, today's pop, and beyond. Glendale Arts has also positioned the Alex Theater as a top-of-mind venue in the film and TV industry. And if I can honestly say, I believe we're the only bidder that takes into consideration all of the preferences of the city council members. And that's because we have spent years cultivating relationships with a truly, truly diverse and dynamic range of artists, and we have no plans to stop. So choosing another operator to manage the Alex Theater puts an end to a small business success story. It also means that the $1.2 million in grant funding that we have secured to operate the Alex Theaters will go away, in addition to the ability to take advantage of our nonprofit status for grant writings in the future. Other losses will include our precious hard-won institutional knowledge and client relationships, donor and ticket buyer data, and our liquor license. It is an unnecessary waste of taxpayers' money to have to rebuild the Alex's business and reputation from scratch. There is no other choice to make but Glendale Arts. As someone who has been active in this community for more than 10 years, and based on the overwhelming support we've received from Glendale residents, businesses, and organizations, making another choice appears baseless. Glendale Arts satisfies council's prevailing mission for the Alex Theater, which is a financially stable operations model, a community-focused cultural facility, and a top-quality entertainment venue. We deserve to be awarded the single negotiator status, and as the new CEO, I am eager to work with city staff, agree to terms, and complete the long-term agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Giles for SAS. No, I'm sorry, Giles is general mission. Miles Williams for SAS. Miles?
Honorable council members, the city of Glendale, and those listening in. On the occasion of today's meeting of City Council, I'd like to take the opportunity to address specific concerns related to our now revised proposal for the management of the Alex Theater. In light of public statements registered at both the two previous council meetings as well as recent press coverage, it seems now timely to correct misconceptions in the community regarding our company's disposition and intentions. Regarding a specific concern about our intended engagement with current resident companies and previous clients, to be clear, SAS has every interest in maintaining relationships with these companies while also honoring their current rental subsidies. All standing future commitments into the booking calendar will be fully recognized and maintained after any transition. If anything, we are interested in engaging with these companies even more meaningfully to ensure the success of their events and the sustainability of their presence at the Alex. These companies are vital community stakeholders who are inevitably integral to the life of the theater. Our intention is to present higher profile programming, and this will only bolster the interests and audiences for these resident companies. Additionally, we have repeatedly been referred to as outside commercial entity with no connection to or engagement with the local community. We consider that our community to be greater Los Angeles. Over 20 years, we've earned the respect of our community, and our current venues reflect that success. Engaging SAS would bring the Alex and its activities into the wider attention of greater Los Angeles and its diverse audiences, to the direct benefit of Glendale and its local economy. The insular culture that has persisted and prevailed over the management of the Alex for the past many years has only diminished its profile as a viable venue for promoters and producers. Subsequently, its full potential as a vital economic driver to local business has been effectively hobbled, as has its actual value as a genuine community hub. We humbly thank you for the consideration of our proposal to date and look forward to the opportunity of direct and forthright negotiation with you for the management of the Alex in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gilles?
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. My name is Gilles Chasson. On behalf of my partner, Adrian Nowak, and General Admission Venue and Production Management, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you today. After reading the staff's report on all the three proposals, we're more convinced than ever that we're your best choice to manage the Alex Theater. We understand the city wants, and I quote, a community-driven theater and a financially profitable venture. We will deliver on both fronts. But before I go further, as I said earlier in response to the councilman's questions, there are two key items in the staff's report that I wanted to speak to. The first one is I just want to reiterate that it is our position that the restoration fee funds belong to the theater and to the city of Glendale, and they shouldn't be used for operations. They should only be used to maintain the theater, and any funds that aren't used would stay with the theater. In the same way that we feel like the data, the mailing list, the other aspects of the theater that are essential for its operation should stay with the theater for the betterment of the city. They shouldn't have the ability to just walk away if the city decides to go in a different direction. And again, to repeat, our revenue sharing proposal doesn't have a maximum. The better we perform, the more revenue the city will receive. I'd also like to highlight that according to the report, general admission is your most affordable option. So on day one of our partnership with the city, we'll begin implementing our strategy for growth to grow the number of events and the days of use in the theater. First, we'll connect with the Alex Theater's patrons and producers and the local business community to make sure that each know they're valued and wanted. Then we'll schedule a season of resident company events a year in advance, and then we'll add top quality shows. We'll book them and add them to the season. This will allow us to bundle those events into series and subscriptions and market them like every other prominent theater in Los Angeles. With success, the money will follow. The more events happening in the theater, the more tickets we'll sell, the more restoration fee funds we'll have to work with to maintain the theater, and the more customers we'll send out onto Brand Boulevard. Everybody wins as long as you have a strategy for growth. The success of the Alex Theater really matters to us on multiple levels. Adrian and I are both married, we have families. As parents, we think about the future every day, and we understand what it means to preserve something for our kids and for the next generation. We're homeowners, so we understand what it means to have a commitment to our neighbors and to our community. We are also theater artists ourselves. We have seen firsthand the power a theater can have in a community, and we have the skills to harness the power of the Alex Theater for the city of Glendale. So what will you get if you choose Adrian and me? We're strong, honest, and transparent. We're ethical, hardworking, compassionate partners. We are powerful communicators, thinkers, creators, and problem solvers. We're decent, good people who are committed to and value the city of Glendale and the people who live here. We believe that your choice today is very simple, that you should choose general admission, venue, and production management. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make my statement. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Gilles. Okay, council members, any comments, questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the phones.
I just have a question, simple
Go ahead,
question from,
Councilmember Agajanian.
yes. Did Glendale Arts, charging any restoration fee in the past that you are aware of or anybody knows?
I can answer that if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yes.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry. The question is for staff. Unless the mayor
Oh,
allows
of course,
you to
of course.
speak,
Let's
please
let-
let
Okay.
staff respond to the question.
Of course.
Right, thank you. Go ahead, Bradley.
Yes, there is an existing fee that is put into the improvements and maintenance of the theater. I do not know that off the top of my head. Are you? Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact number is off the top of my head, but if the mayor would like, I believe Nina may be able to highlight some additional information on that.
If I may?
Okay, go ahead, Nina.
Oh, no. Oh, okay, I'll let Nina.
Okay,
There
sorry
was-
about that preemptive information there, but yes, we do have a tiered per ticket fee. Right now, it is at $2 per ticket that goes into a facility fund. That facility fund does stay with the venue, however, and it stays with the venue for improvements and projects. Because being a 96-year-old theater, there are day-to-day things that have to happen in order to keep it up and running and in beautiful condition as it is. So we collect that fee with the understanding of all the ticket buyers that it will stay with the organization and improve the venue.
Okay, but it was not coming to the city of Glendale.
It was not correct. So the fee does not go to the city of Glendale.
Okay, thank you.
The fee is collected through the ticket purchase and stays with Glendale Arts to
All right.
use for improving
Thank
the
you.
venue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Nina.
I-
Okay, any other comments, questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Just a follow-up
Yes.
on that.
Julian.
In our lease agreement and management agreement with Glendale Arts, they are responsible for all of those. I think the difference in what you're seeing in some of these is that the city would pay for it and then they would be reimbursed. In our current agreement, the fee is charged and then it is expended by the manager.
Okay.
Basically the same thing.
All right,
and
thank you.
can I ask you, Mr. Lansafane,
Yes, ma'am.
can you give me us an idea of how much has been collected or what these, I don't remember seeing this in any of the monthly biannual reports that we've gotten.
If you'll give me a moment, if you carry on, I'll see if I can find that in some of the projected budget from the proposals.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then, any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing none. Let's go to the phones. Mr. Janine, how many do we have?
Madam Mayor, we have 6 callers waiting.
Okay, let's begin.
Escott Norton, you have 3 minutes. Escott, go ahead.
Dear council members, my name is Escott Norton. I'm a former Glendale resident, lifelong Alex patron, and historic theater consultant. I'm speaking in support of reopening exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts for the management of the Alex Theater. As the former executive director of the LA Historic Theater Foundation, I interacted with Glendale Arts team frequently. I'm also intimately aware of all of the other historic venues in Los Angeles County. There is no comparison. There is not another venue management relationship to equal what Glendale Arts has created at the Alex. Glendale Arts built the Alex Theater into what it is today, a nationally known and respected home for the arts. They have managed the restoration and revitalization of this historic venue and have maintained it impeccably. In the hundreds of theaters I've visited, the Alex is one of the cleanest and most organized, both backstage and in front of the curtain. Managing a historic theater like the Alex is more than just booking shows and running the technical aspects. The constant care needed for a century-old building is a unique responsibility and one that Glendale Arts has proven they can take on. This is not just a pretty box that can be rented out, and no one knows the specific needs and capabilities of the Alex Theater better than the Glendale Arts team. I'd be very wary of making a decision based on the financial aspects alone, when only one of these companies has actually restored, maintained, and operated a historic theater. I trust the Glendale Arts numbers because they're based on actual experience. Properly programming the Alex Theater is a delicate balance of community-based groups with local followings and well-known artists who will bring new people into Glendale. Glendale Artists has the relationships and proven track record with both groups. Please listen to reason, reopen exclusive negotiations with the people who know how to operate the Alex Theater better than anyone else, Glendale Arts. Do the right thing for the Alex Theater, for the people of Glendale and the surrounding community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Maria Sahakian, you have 3 minutes. Maria.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and members of the City Council. This is Maria Sahakian, Chief Operating Officer at Glendale Arts. As you know, operating an arts and entertainment venue, not to mention one that's a historic landmark, is a complex, multifaceted business, which is why the Alex needs Glendale Arts. What we do and are capable of doing for the Alex, the city, and our community is immeasurable and can't be replicated. The difference between today and tomorrow is that by earning your votes today, starting tomorrow, we'll be able to firm up the bookings and ticket on sales that have been put on hold. Launch a booking partnership we've had in development with a major concert promoter to bring national touring acts we all know and love to Glendale, resume fundraising on a large scale, and so much more. Glendale Arts is an asset to the city of Glendale, custom built to operate, manage, program, and preserve the Alex. I humbly ask you to vote in favor of your asset today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
Mike Hune. Mike, you're live. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Hume from the Los Angeles Historic Theatre Foundation. For 34 years, we've been the go-to experts with a mission to preserve, protect, restore, and sustain historic theatres throughout LA County. We, just like you, are focused on ensuring that the best operator and steward is in place at Alex for the next phase, especially coming out of the last 18 months. Upon review of the reports made public and revisiting council and staff comments over the last few meetings, LAHTF encourages City Council to direct staff to re-enter exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts. They have lowered their management fee to $250,000 a year as requested by Council in April and June. Their leadership success rate with grants speaks for itself and is going to be an asset with the upcoming improvements needed and the overall bottom line. More than ever, the Alex Theatre needs a steward that has the experience and expertise to oversee a historic theatre from general maintenance to capital improvements. We can all agree that Glendale Arts has the track record to back up their commitment to improvements and the vision for upgrades that continue to keep the Alex at the top of the game. The execution of capital projects at the Alex over the years is to be commended. Unfortunately, we're unable to be reassured that the other two candidates are able to do the same in a timely fashion while keeping a focus on the theatre's historic integrity. It's not to say they can't, but we need more confidence. The theatre needs a solid fiscal foundation and understanding of the impact the capital projects, programming and offsetting costs to overcome the post-COVID hurdle. Of the three, we strongly believe the non-profit has had the sole mission of protecting and sustaining the Alex is the best candidate to ensure the fiscal responsibility that lies ahead, not only to themselves and the theatre, but to the city and the community. As a theatre non-profit ourselves, we can't express enough the extraordinary value of donations, major gifts and grants to sustain an arts organisation in COVID 2021 and beyond. Glendale Arts has long been set up to do just this, and will be able to hit the ground running fully once negotiations have wrapped and a new management agreement executed. We understand that other peoples have indicated their desire to set up a non-profit in the future, but we need to be looking at the now. The missed opportunities in potential grants and institutional giving, as well as the individual donors and community involvement, will be drastically lacking under another operator at this time. So, in conclusion, LHF encourages City Council to direct staff to re-enter exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts and to continue to build on the long-standing relationship between the City of Glendale, Glendale Arts, and the community of which both serve. Proceeding with exclusive negotiations will help avoid any fiscal and relationship impact resulting from interrupted programming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Kevin Bartanian, you have 3 minutes. Kevin, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Kevin Bartanian. I'm the Vice Chair of Glendale Arts. On behalf of the board, we thank you for your continued service to the city. The original RFP was issued almost now 2 years ago. Our nonprofit organization has gone through city-ordered audits and many variations of RFP-related responses. This is in addition to successfully dealing with and funding our way through the pandemic. The community has spoken, your consultants have spoken, your various reports and analysis has made it clear Glendale Arts is the right choice for the city. SAS and Glendale Admissions sound like decent people. I'm sure they are, but honestly, they are not Glendalians and have not managed a similarly unique property as the Alex Theater. In addition to the amazing Glendale Arts staff that we have, you have a fully vested volunteer board with a massive entertainment, theater, media, art, and community backgrounds. Most also live in the city, and this is personal to them. I'd like to ask the council to make an affirmative and confident decision today and select Glendale Arts, a nonprofit organization, to continue to successfully manage the theater on behalf of the city and serve the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chris Green, you have 3 minutes. Chris, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As a current board member, I'm speaking today in support of Glendale Arts. My support comes from the knowledge and experience of a 40-year career working in entertainment, but also as a 24-year Glendale resident who wants the best for all residents of our city. Most importantly, I would encourage you to take a close look at the realistic ability of all proposing parties to deliver on their promises, especially when after available research and closer inspection, it clearly looks as if the actual experience of the new proposing groups should be considered limited. While I'm sure that they may be successful at what they do, it clearly looks as if none have near the breadth of experience or track record to run all aspects of the Alex that Glendale Arts brings to the table and that are needed to be successful. I also believe that this should be a nuanced decision, not only about dollars and cents, especially when some of their actual proposals are based on the hope of profits and revenue sharing, not guarantees. Hope is not a plan. It takes a deep understanding of the historic theater business and the Glendale community to develop and budget an annual slate, foster numerous relationships with multiple resident companies in the film and television industry, serving and partnering with local community groups, front and back of house production, marketing, managing capital improvements, and the ongoing maintenance of a historic venue. These are not simply items on a checklist. These are areas requiring deep knowledge and multiple years of on-the-job experience, which the new leadership of Glendale Arts possesses. Glendale Arts is ready to take the Alex to the next level with a keen focus on the council's leadership and direction and what is best for our community. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Next caller.
Friar McAllister, you have 3 minutes, Friar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to speak. I will say that I am not speaking from a script, and I am advocating for SAS today. I have to say that as a 30-year veteran in both production and general management of live venues, both in the nonprofit sector and the commercial sector of Los Angeles, I can absolutely speak to SAS's both experience and capacity to competently manage venues. I was the managing director with SAS during their tenure at the Saban, and I'm very well versed in the language of venue operation. To my colleagues that have already spoken on script, I would only say that, again, SAS is not resorting to political gamesmanship here. SAS felt that their response to the RFP, which scored the highest of the 3 respondents, was adequate and should be adequate. This 6-month process has been a disrespect to all parties, in my humble opinion. And what would be best for the city of Glendale would be to recognize the deficiencies that have been pointed out by the so-called outsider in this process. Outsiders can see what the insiders can't see. And what SAS observed and reported to on the basis of their tour was a culture of neglect and incompetence by Glendale Arts and, frankly, the city to this historic venue. There is no other entity involved in this process more qualified and with a greater capacity to address the city's needs and the needs of the community and this historic venue than the SAS. And I exhort the City Council to deeply consider this as they are about to vote. I don't believe that SAS has been given fair or proper consideration given its experience, background, and active interest in this venue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more callers?
Madam Mayor, we do have 2 more callers.
Okay, fine.
Glenn Treititz. Glenn, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I don't have a prepared or scripted statement like some of your others. I am the former chairman of the board of the Glendale Symphony, which is no longer, and a board member for many years of the Glendale Symphony, and the Alex Theater was our home. And I've also been a financial supporter of the Musical Theater Guild, and I've attended their events. And I think the board should take the council should take into account that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Now, the Glendale Arts may have done a great job in getting the Alex historically together and maintained and so on, but it's time, I believe, for a new direction where you have a professional organization that's going to add to the attendance of all of the organizations that have residency there. I can tell you it's impossible to sell tickets for the Glendale Symphony in Glendale, and we're talking about an organization that was over 80 years old. And we had no support from the Alex. The Musical Theater Guild can barely get half the house. So I think if you had an organization that could market an entire season, bring in high-profile events that would make people in the greater Los Angeles area take notice of the Alex Theater and things happening at the Alex Theater, the new direction would be a big shot in the arm to the city of Glendale. And I think it's time to move in a different direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
Helen McDonough. Helen, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine, City Council members, and City staff. This is Helen McDonough. I'm a 17-year business owner a block north of the Alex Theater. I'm also a board member on the Greater Downtown Glendale Association. And I am calling in to voice my support today to choose Glendale Arts to manage the Alex Theater. They are 100% focused on Glendale and the Alex. These other third-party companies managing many venues will never be able to give it the attention of our local people that run Glendale Arts. And I think it would be a dark day for our city if we outsource this to a third party. So again, Glendale Arts should be your choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any more callers. Would you like me to take more calls as they come in, or would you want me to stop at this point and take them up?
I think they've had plenty of opportunity to call in, but let's wait and see if we get a hold any more. Okay, so let's move then to council questions and comments. I'd like to, you know what, before we do that, I would like to hear from SAS and general admission and what they thought of some of the comments, and Nina as well for Glendale Arts, some of the comments that were made concerning your organizations.
Are we going in any particular?
Miles, would you like to begin? Do you have any rebuttal to what was said in those calls?
Well, I guess I would say that it didn't seem like they were addressing us as much. I think that we are very excited with the possibilities of seeing a new future for the Alex. And we do believe that it has been underutilized and that it can have a future that is much different and much brighter than what the past has been. We do see imminent possibilities of engagement with the larger music industry and performing arts industry. And if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. If that's not what you want, then we're probably not the right choice, because that's all we really know how to do. Is we take venues. The Orpheum, when it started, was nothing. Downtown was nothing. The Renaissance down there began in the historic core with the Orpheum Theater. And so building up a community around a venue is something that we're very familiar with. This is something that I think that the Alex could use, despite the fact it's been running for so long. It's been running as a bit of an outsider to the primary industry of performing arts in Los Angeles. It is not thought of when major artists are coming into LA to do their show on their tour. The infrastructure at the theater that was revealed to us during the walkthrough that we were able to do post our initial proposal revealed that some very basic infrastructure is not in place to host these types of shows. This is part of the reason why we do have additional money requested for improvements, because if you want to be a venue that can actually regularly do these types of acts, you need to invest in it. I understand that over the years, the city's has become less and less interested in supporting the activities there with financial contributions. And that makes some sense, because what's happening there isn't really that exciting. And nor is it bringing in the type of audiences and the levels of audience that are capable. Looking at the last report that was presented to us after our initial proposal, it shows that Glendale Arts audiences are about 35% capacity. 35% capacity. This is an astounding number, and it shows that while they may have a busy calendar, they're not putting audiences in their seats. 35% is the sort of thing that does not look like on a report card as some sort of a grand success story, which is what they keep saying that they've accomplished here. So if you want some change, we represent that. So I guess I'll close with that.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you. And Gilles? Any comment?
Yeah. I would say one thing I would offer is that what I said in my statement about our commitment to the city, to the theater, is really true. And our sole focus will be the Alex Theater. And we saw the same numbers that Miles did, about the 35% attendance. And that to me was very telling. And that's why I created the entire idea of a strategy for growth, because that's how the theater becomes self-supporting, with an increase in attendance and an increase in the number of events. And it's going to require a substantial amount of work and focus to really, not necessarily to rebrand the theater, but to reestablish it in the LA landscape. It's going to require some creativity, and it's going to require creativity in terms of understanding the kind of artists that you can book in the space that makes sense economically and can establish the theater as a place that people think about when they're trying to decide what to do on a Friday night. And I think that's what the city is looking for, is they want the city to be vibrant and a place that not only is a vibrant center and hub for the community of Glendale, but for Los Angeles. Because the history of the theater is quite grand, but that history doesn't exist now. There was a time in the theater's history when it was a destination, and I think that's what the city wants to get back to. But I think in order to do that, the focus has to not be on the last 100 years. The focus needs to be on the next 100 years. And that's what Adrian and I have worked to put together, is a strategy that really starts to look at how the theater can grow in terms of its stature, in terms of the place that it can hold in the city of Los Angeles, so that it can not just bring the community of Glendale into the theater, into downtown, but to really bring all of Los Angeles here. That's really what we offer. We're offering the city a young, creative, hardworking team of guys who are really going to deliver for you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nina, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I would. I'd actually first like to speak about programming, and then I'd like to talk about management. Both of the other parties at the moment referred to a report, and I'm not sure where those numbers came from. They may have been given to Bradley as far as the number of events that we host, the number of people that we have, but I don't know what was taken into consideration because a lot of our events actually do not have audiences, and that's intentional. They don't have audiences because they are film shoots and TV shoots. They may have a limited audience because it's a graduation. There may be a film screening, or let's just say a taping to go on Netflix, and Netflix hires an outside resource to stage the audience. Those numbers are not included in any of the numbers that were given. So we do a variety of events that go from sellout, 1,411 seats, sellout, to 0 people in the audience because we are filming. So I'm not sure, again, where those numbers came from, but that's just something to note. And the other thing, as far as some of the things that have been taken into consideration with subscriptions, we do understand that that is not a valid way of earning money from a couple of different reasons. Subscriptions are a little bit on the way out right now. It is really a business practice of one-off events. And our resident companies are all nonprofits of their own. And while we have had discussions with bundling tickets, they're not interested in bundling tickets. We know this because this is the space we live in. These are the people that we talk to and that we have relationships with. And while some of them have worked in tandem with marketing and co-marketing and co-branding, it is not a season subscription that they are interested in selling. So those are some side notes that I would like to bring up. I would like to get to the question on hand, which is really a management fee. All we've been talking about is programming, and it was not proposed on a programming fee and who would have the best programming. We're talking about managing the theater. And when you pay Glendale Arts to manage the theater, not only do you get day-to-day maintenance and preservation, I mean, every morning we're out there cleaning the kiosks. Some mornings we're cleaning up graffiti and trying to soften out the etches in the poster cases and cleaning up the cigarette butts and the glasses of beer that are left out outside the theater. But we're also working on developing and updating and maintaining safety plans. We're also researching and trying to develop grant proposals so that we don't have to use our operations funds to fund programs. This is something that I've spoken to Bradley in the past that I would love to partner on. The balcony project, the concessions project. These are perfect ideas for grants. This is what we've been wanting to do for the last 18 months. Now, COVID got in the way, and the management agreement discussion is now our biggest hurdle. We are ready to launch naming opportunities, and that concession space is the #1 thing that we're going to do. So I just am talking about the management fee allows us to have activity with a professional stage and management crew and do day-to-day activities that are needed in the regular maintenance. I think that these are the things that are entrenched in the daily things that we do. Our crew and our staff go to the theater, they know what they got to do. They're not going to wait to make some repairs until we know that there's a show coming up. It's a 96-year-old theater, and you've got to be able to be on top of it every day, because otherwise there's the delayed maintenance cost, which is going to be 10 times fold. We are also aware that we are on the brink of the 100th birthday of the Alex Theater. It's already in our minds. We're already thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to get excited for the 100th birthday celebration? You all saw it living in Glendale, what we did for the 90th birthday. The city came together. We raised funds. We restored the tower and the spire and the marquee. We had a glorious celebration, and we've had anniversary after birthday celebration since. So again, I just would like us to get back to the conversation about the maintenance, the management agreement. which the maintenance and preservation is a very, very important piece of it. In addition to programming, which, by the way, we have a great balance of our local artists as well as the commercial touring. We're on the brink of a substantial deal with 25 concerts coming to the Alex Theater. And as I said before, I believe that we have the assortment of programming that is something for everybody. Again, I said we've got graduations, we've got weddings, but we also have Wild Honey selling out the audience. We also have all of our resident companies. And we are looking, we're not just sitting idle, also just waiting for the phone to ring, just talking to our existing clients. We're out there and we're looking for more business. So the management fee, just as our definition, when we're paid a management fee, it allows us to allocate other money that we earn through fundraising and other efforts, and then we can invest in a diverse and exciting programming. And that's kind of all I have to say about that. I have more to say if you'll let me talk some more.
So
I'm sure there's some
we want to move on to
I know.
council questions. Thank you all for your insight and your thoughts. And the reason I did this was we haven't had an opportunity to, as council, to talk to these proposers. So it gives us an opportunity kind of get to know you a bit more. So now I will go to my colleagues and get questions and comments.
Okay.
So who would like to begin?
Ms.
Councilmember
Divan.
Najarian, Councilmember Kasakian.
Ms. Divan.
We haven't heard from you, and I see Councilmember Agajanian wants to go first, so go ahead.
Okay. I just want to mention I have lived in Glendale for over 40 years. And I'm very familiar with Glendale Alex Theater, I'm sorry. And as chairman of different nonprofit organizations, I have rented on behalf of the organizations the theater. So I have to say, it was very difficult to rent the place. It was not easy. Then you would see that some others, they are capable or they can rent the place with very few audiences. I mean, I had problem with that issue for years. And we have spent millions of dollars on this theater. And when I became a council member, I asked, because the money which we were paying was per year was $450,000 to $500,000. And I wanted to see that this theater will be self-sufficient because this is great. We have this historic theater, and people, they come from neighboring cities and benefiting from this Alex Theater and the performance which was they would go to see. But Glendalians were burdening the cost of it. Glendale residents were paying every year, as I said, started with almost $500,000. Then I asked to work better, to be more efficient. We reduced it. I don't know exactly how much, but it was $350, $250. Eventually, we brought it down to $150. I guess that was the last time. And I was hoping that we would go down and down. Apparently, recently, as you know, we paid more than that for 6 months. Of course, now is different time. I'm just mentioning, but it's nobody's fault. The coronavirus ruined everything. But what I'm saying, this is going on for such a long time, and it's time to do something different. We have to go to different direction to see what's out there. With that, of course, I will wait for my other council members, my colleagues, to express themselves. But I want to move to have city begin exclusive negotiations with SAS. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Agajanian. Next, Councilmember Kasakian or Najarian. Kasakian? Are you
Thank you,
there?
Mayor. I can say a few words. I don't want to belabor this issue any more than it has. I've made my point that as experienced as some of these other vendors are, providing a community theater that also happens to be profitable is a very difficult proposition for anyone to do. I think that Glendale Arts has come a long way, has helped transform itself and the theater. And I believe that, being a local nonprofit with local volunteers that hires local individuals, my preference would be to re-engage in an exclusive negotiation agreement with Glendale Arts. I don't want to change course now and, kick them while they're down or make some decisions based on numbers potentially impacted by the COVID crisis and harm their ability to continue to bring quality acts to Glendale. So that's where I'm at. I would recommend that my colleagues and I re-enter exclusive negotiations with Glendale Arts, and because we've worked with them for so long and they've worked with us, be able to come to understanding on some of the finer points of the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. So let's go back to why we're here. Councilmember Agajanian touched on it. We were paying large management fees and annual contributions to Glendale Arts to manage the theater. For as long as I was on council, the point that I made and highlighted was we want to get that management fee lower and lower. Now, how do you get it lower and lower? You either have successful events, which can offset the management fee that the city has to pay, or you reduce your management expenses. Those are the only two ways of doing it. Now, it's for that reason, along with, the Glendale Arts was doing a good job, but clearly the Alex Theater was not an exciting venue. They weren't bringing in exciting acts. There was some complaints by the community about not being able to get stage time or theater time. So we put it out for RFP. And so let me remind everyone that the three priorities that the council placed in the RFP to give to anyone who is interested is: number one, establish consistent financial stability and sustainability for Alex Theater operations while minimizing the level of the annual management fee provided by the city. That was the top priority. The second priority was provide a cultural facility of performing arts, cultural facility and performing arts venue that is available, accessible, and affordable to use by local community organizations and nonprofits. And the third priority was to attract top quality entertainment clients, events, and performances with great frequency, which will be an economic catalyst for the downtown. Now, I know Glendale Arts in this presentation had some ideas that they put out. Well, you guys have been running this theater for how many years? Since 2008? And even before that, it was essentially the same management crew. It is not filled with exciting performances. We do not have a consistent financial stability, which minimizes the level of the city's management fee. And we've had complaints that it is not available for local community organizations and nonprofits. I mean, did you hear what the director of the Glendale Symphony Orchestra just said? He said he was getting no support from the Alex Theater, which presumably led to their demise. I mean, Of all the speakers who maybe had some attachments, whether they were on the board of Glendale Arts or friends of SAS or supporters of general admission, I mean, that person should have the greatest credibility of anyone who spoke. Elisa Glickman, who was the director, CEO, is gone. Now, I know Nina was involved in the management, but it's like putting a new quarterback in on your team. You don't know how that quarterback is going to perform. As far as the capital improvements go, as you put these proposals together, I don't think you could really hold it against SAS, who indicates that our property needs $4.5 million of improvements to bring in the exciting events and performances with great frequency. So to charge that against them, which is the improvement of an asset that we own, I don't think that's a fair comparison of that. And if you knock out that $4.5 million, SAS is doing this. I mean, looks like they're probably making the city money with the contribution of their facilities fee. Their management fee is $0. And despite all of our complaints to Glendale Arts that the fees were too high, we went from a $150,000 a year management fee to $250,000 a year management fee. I think they're tone deaf. It was made absolutely clear to them that we wanted to reduce the city's contribution. But in this process, they almost doubled what their management fee was going to be. SAS is doing it for $0. They have and what does that mean? That gives them the incentive to hustle, to get out there and book the acts and bring in the performers and to manage it as efficiently as possible. Because if not, they don't make any money. If you give someone the salary to manage, there's really a lesser incentive for them to be successful as a business than someone who has got his own skin in the game. So, we've had a long history with Glendale Arts. They're hardworking people. Their hearts are in the right places, but it is time for a change for this city to get a different management organization for the Alex Theater. And so that's why I would support SAS, and I would second Mr. Agajanian's motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Najarian. Councilmember Broadman, did you want to conclude your
Yes,
comments and
please.
questions?
Yeah. So we hired a consulting group to help us with this, called the Arts Consulting Group. And we spent, $35,000 to get them to look at the current operations of Glendale Arts and to give us basically an audit. And had they come back and said, we see problems, then I would be in the same place as Councilmember Najarian and Councilmember Agajanian and thinking that, maybe a change is necessary. But they didn't. They said to us, I'll quote a few things they said, Glendale Arts has strong operational functions that have improved in recent years. They have solid financial competency. They talked about their unusually low staff turnover, their good relations between management and the board. They also talked about the community's interest and they interviewed quite a number of people, in diverse programming and a theater that's accessible to local community groups. So we have a solid organization that's 100% focused on the Alex, and SAS would not be 100% focused on the Alex. It would just be one of a number of theaters that they're managing. They've survived COVID and have come out quite strong. But another thing that the consulting report said to us was that financial success has been inhibited not by Glendale Arts, but by us, by the current structure of the management relationship. Meaning we've been keeping them on a very tight leash with 5-year contracts. And the consulting group report was very specific in saying, if we want a successful theater, we need to enter into a longer-term arrangement, and they suggested 10 years. They also said that the city and Glendale Arts would benefit from clearer measurements of success, and they noted that we have not been very clear with Glendale Arts on what we want. If we were clearer, and I think through these discussions and negotiations, we have been clearer, I think we can get a different outcome. So to put any of these disappointments that we might have on them, I think is just misplaced. I think they're a solid organization. They've got the experience we need. And I don't think SAS or Glendale or General Admission have the same level of experience operating a historical theater like the Alex. They're good organizations, they're good people, I'm sure. But we heard SAS, and I did some research, and they basically have done what we're asking for 3 years at the Saban, and then it was terminated for reasons that, I don't know, are still not completely clear to me. So I think we'd be taking a huge risk if we were to go with either SAS or General Admission, and I think it's an unnecessary risk. I don't think they have the necessary management experience. I don't think they have experience with preservation, which is very important. They may have ideas, for shows that are good, and maybe they can partner. And I do believe that Glendale Arts has had some discussions with SAS about potentially partnering to bring in some shows. But I still think if we want somebody to run the theater from soup to nuts, all aspects of theater operations, then we can't do better than continuing with Glendale Arts and entering into exclusive negotiations with them. Let me see if I think I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you to my colleagues. Before I make any comments, I have questions for Miles and Gilles and Nina, if you'll bear with me. First of all, for Miles and Gilles, one of the comments that Nina Crow made was that they have all these bookings that have already been kind of put in place, and they would be activated immediately. How soon, if you were to be given this this management position, how soon can you firm up the bookings that have already been accomplished by the current management? Miles, do you want to go first?
Immediately.
You could do.
That's what I would say, immediately. I think that transition between two different managers, that I think, and I don't know if Bradley, if you know the language from the previous contract, if that's carried over, there was some transitional language in the previous management agreement with Glendale Arts regarding a transitional time, but we have no problem honoring the agreements that they have starting immediately. So whatever shows they are, and or whoever they're negotiating with for additional shows, including resident companies and new clients as well.
Okay, thank you. Gilles?
My answer would be the same. There would be no it would be in no one's best interest to not pursue any of the agreements that already exist and any of the leads that exist. So I'd say the same thing as Miles. The minute we take over, we would immediately work on the agreements that are already in place and make sure that those happen successfully. We would foster those relationships. That's one of the assets that the theater has. You wouldn't want to squander that. You would want to build on it. So if there's any apprehension on the part of someone renting the theater right now, it shouldn't come from who the new management company would be. If they need a space, if they're having trouble negotiating for that space, then I don't know that fault would lie with either SAS or General Admission. That would lie with whoever's conducting the negotiations now.
All right.
And
Okay. Thank you very much. My second question is for both of you. There seems to be a question about your experience with historic theaters and also the day-to-day management of the theater, like, for instance, cleaning the ashtrays or making sure that everything is kind of up to snuff. What is your day-to-day management MOU or whatever mode of operation? And what about the historic theater experience? Miles?
Well, historic theaters are exactly what we do. Since I started the company, that is the only spaces that we have been working in. The Orpheum Theater is a similar age as the Alex. It has historic National Registry designation, exactly the same. The same is true of the theater at the Ace Hotel, from the same era as is the Saban Theater. So the particulars of those historic spaces are actually something that I love about what I do. I prefer those kinds of buildings. I prefer those kind of venues. And I think that the audience experience there is enhanced by the architecture. From the day-to-day maintenance of those facilities, it starts with cleaners, is who it starts with. It starts with who does the cleaning, because they're the ones who see any damages. They're the ones who are able to report regularly on what needs attention, because they have their hands on every surface and they understand that things need to be maintained ongoing. One of the things we discovered in our tour of the Alex Theater was that the staff member of the current staff member in charge of the facility, as we went from space to space in a fairly extensive tour, pointed out large deferred maintenance items pretty much everywhere we went. So I would say that compared to the theaters that we're in, the Alex has actually suffered under deferred maintenance problems and not maintaining day-to-day things and not fixing things as they come up. And I'm not sure why that's how it's been managed, but that isn't what we would do. I think that things need fixed as soon as they're identified. That's certainly what happens downtown.
Okay, thank you. Giles?
I'm the first one to admit I haven't managed a historic space, but what I can tell you is that every theater is unique and idiosyncratic. And when you're managing a theater, you have to come to know the theater intimately, and then you devise your maintenance and your strategies based on the personality of that space. So if it's a new building, it will have its own quirks and problems. If it's an historic building, it will have its own unique challenges. So the idea that you have to have managed a historic space in the past and that somehow that's the magic, the magic formula, it's just about understanding the building and being present from day to day, learning what its needs are. And then, as Miles said, you have to have it's staff. You have staff that are there day to day, they lay their hands on, and you create a culture where the staff reports up so that things don't fall by the wayside or they don't get put off. Another thing, if you look at our initial proposal, we have General Admission put forth a really detailed preventative maintenance program where we isolated every different aspect of the building in terms of what's key to operations and a schedule about when we address all of those different items, what the dollar amount required to address them all is, and it's all mapped out over the course of the year. So the way you manage the maintenance cost in our philosophy is that you get ahead of the problems by spending a little bit of money to stay ahead of whatever the problems are. So you know, you don't have crises. You don't have huge fires to put out. You don't have big problems. You address the issues on a regular schedule so that you can address them in a way that's cost effective. So, and the last thing I wanted to say is that I hear a lot of the talk about, you know, cleaning the in front of the theater or the ashtrays and all that. That's what any management company is going to do. That's just what you do when you run a theater. It's not unique to Glendale Arts. I'm sure they do a great job, but at the end of the day, any company you hire to manage the theater is going to have a staff to clean the theater, and they're going to look at the front, and they're going to look for the beer cans, and they're going to do all of those things because that's just part of the job. And you know, if it's not happening, then that should raise questions for you. And from my perspective, that's just what it is. That's the day-to-day work of having a good staff that you trust, that has good communication, has integrity, and they basically care about the theater as much as, and that culture of caring starts at the top.
Okay.
And
Thank
if you all care for the space, then that makes a big difference.
Okay. Next question. We've also heard a lot of talk about community collaboration, community partnerships. Do you plan, or is that in a plan of yours, or do you look ahead at working with our school district, our college, our downtown business association in bringing more success to the Alex Theater, or to including them in the changes that you bring to the Alex Theater? Miles?
Well, let me start with the schools. I enjoyed almost 10 years at the Cerrito Center for the Performing Arts before starting my company. And we had a vibrant relationship with the local schools, and the kids would be bussed in for performances like Wynton Marsalis and his orchestra, and a variety. It's a huge variety. It's actually the reason I got into the business when I was a child, was I was brought to one of those very same things and saw an orchestra up close and personal. So I think that that's an important part of what is actually a theater's community involvement, is with the children. When it comes to the community, and we would like to do that very much so. We would like to offer matinee performances where kids are bussed in. And we will continue. We will plan on doing that, absolutely. When it comes to the community college, I am intending on working with them in a program to develop a relationship for internship training, that sort of thing. We employ a lot of people, and we having a pipeline of people of that age who are interested in technical theater, who are interested in box office front of house. We would like to engage with them. We do draw our employees from some of the other community colleges that, and their graduate programs. Some of them do have very good theater programs in and around Los Angeles. As far as the other community stakeholders that you mentioned, the level of involvement that they can have is as much as they would like, and we certainly will try and nurture that. I do plan on hiring a community liaison specifically to engage on that level. Hopefully someone who's actually been involved in Glendale downtown, working with the local businesses on brand, potentially someone even from the previous manager. So we'll see as far as who I can get to take that on as their primary role looking forward for what we're going to do there.
Thank you. Gilles?
In terms of engaging with the community, one of the things that I found in my experience is that every event is unique and has its own unique challenges. And so there's a couple answers to your question. One is that in our desire to expand the programming and expand the days of use, we're going to reach out to anyone who has an interest in using the theater and find a way to partner with them. And how successfully we partner requires on not having a cookie cutter approach to these different events, but to actually talking to them about what their goals are and then finding ways to make them as successful as possible. And what I have found is that when you actually get into the details with these different producers and you find out what they're trying to accomplish. You can find ways to make space in the calendar for them. You can find ways to create partnerships and make connections that support their work they're trying to do. But it really requires someone who's focused on these different events in a specific way, and the partnerships are one show at a time. And, you know, a community liaison, that will be me. And I'll be the person who's out meeting with the local businesses and finding out what their needs are and finding how we can partner with them and working to creatively find solutions that we all have agency in and we all have buy-in for. So my answer to you is that there isn't a broad approach as much as there is having the presence and the mindfulness to deal with each person in each show in an individual way, and then looking for ways to maximize their success and understanding that their success is our success.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And my final question is about forming a foundation to secure grants, because that's something that Glendale Arts has done a really good job with. Do you plan on taking that same path? Miles?
My model for this was, again, calling back to the Cerritos Center. We had a nonprofit group there called the Friends of the Cerritos Center, and they were the fundraising arm. And that facility was obviously also a city facility, not unlike the Alex, owned by the city. And I would like to do the same thing. I don't think that leaving the donors behind because now there's a commercial operator is such a great idea. I think they would like to continue to be involved, and I would like to give them an opportunity to do that through the formation of a Friends of the Alex Theater. Yes.
And Gilles?
I agree. It was always part of our plan from the very beginning to create a nonprofit to run parallel to the theater, because you don't want to leave any funding or financial support. You don't want to leave it on the table. You want to get whatever funds and support for the theater that you can. And obviously grants are a big part of that, and fundraising and benefit events. There are a lot of different ways, in addition to the successful operation, which by having a good lean operation, which is what I bring to the table, that allows you to operate the theater in a way that's fiscally sound. You don't want to leave potential resources. And also, I just think that people with an organization that's as important to the community as the Alex is to the city of Glendale, I think that the citizens want a way to participate. They don't just want to buy a ticket to see the show. They want to understand how they can contribute and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And the foundation that runs parallel to the theater is a big part of that. It provides an opportunity to grow that base of patrons. And it's part of how the theater will maintain its stature and grow its stature in the community.
It's funny, I think you're going to have, if either one of you gets this contract, you're going to have a little bit of an issue with both of those proposals. My last question is to Nina, if you're ready, Nina. And
hello.
Hi, Nina.
Hi.
Hi. You've heard all of my questions, and of course they were all in reference to the factors that you brought up. But this is what I want to ask you about, and I don't want to sound harsh, but you know, we've been working with you and staff and with Alyssa for many years, as Councilmember Najarian said, and it's been kind of status quo. And now all of a sudden, when you're under the gun here, you're coming up with kind of I'm assuming there are new ideas or new ways of getting programming and sponsorships, et cetera. And why wasn't this done earlier? Why wasn't it done 5 years ago? Why now?
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that these things actually started 5 years ago. These relationships take a lot of time to develop and a lot of time to build. And we are already that nonprofit organization. Cerritos, I believe, gives their theater a few $1 million to do programming and to have a successful operations. While it seems like we're pivoting at the moment to satisfy your questions, It's been things that are in the works. We developed a major gifts program that got cut short by COVID. Again, I mentioned that naming opportunity for the upstairs concessions area, which is going to be brilliant, by the way. I think one of the key questions is, why are we asking for $250,000 this time around when the last time around we were receiving $150,000? I know that that's a question that's come up. And if I can just say, things cost more money now than they did even last year, right? And that agreement was a sunset agreement in order to make us feel more independent and gain our own sense of individuality. But it did harm us quite a bit. Labor costs go up, wages go up. Costs of repairs go up. And so that is why it's not that we're not hearing you. We're saying this is actually what it costs. This is what it costs to have the people here. We have had to lower the number of our staff. We're now at a key group that is about half of where we used to be just a year ago at this time. We are watching our dollars. We are crunching them. We are applying for grants. We already have relationships with the school district, with Glendale Educational Foundation. We already have a residency program idea in place for GCC for their music groups. While they start their fundraising effort to build their new building, we want them at the theater. These are things that take time and talent and negotiation and patience, and then someone goes on vacation, and then you come back and you start to, it takes time. So it's not that these things are happening suddenly. They're happening because Glendale Arts is an amazing organization. Our staff, you can't beat them. Everyone is working at 100% and has been, especially through COVID, and things are starting to break through. So while it appears that we're just doing this in the moment, these have all been plans that have been laid out for great things to happen.
Okay, thank you. So,
Madam
Well,
Mayor?
Divine,
yeah,
will we have a chance to ask any other questions or respond to anything else that was said?
You may. Do you have some responses?
I did just want to point out, I believe his name was Glenn from the Glendale Symphony. Glendale Arts was not the management company at that time. It was the Alex Regional Theater Board. From my recollection, because it was before my time, I believe that they had some problems with the conductor. And we also, if I remember correctly, the Alex Regional Theater Board waived rent. So, while it sounds credible at face value, I did just want to put that out there to hear our side of the story of what was, that wasn't us. And while, yes, not all dates are available, not all performance groups can afford the rent, we do work with every single person that comes our way. And while we're sorry that we can't accommodate everybody that wants to book the theater, although we're a nonprofit, we are still a for-profit business entity that does need to earn a living.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Nina. Thank
Mayor
you yes,
Mayor Devine?
yes, Councilmember Brotman?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something on the management fee before you give your final comments, if I could.
Sure. Go ahead.
And this, I think, is for staff. So Glendale Arts is asking for $250,000 a year. Does that include utilities or exclude utilities?
The utilities would be separate from it's the management fee is for them to utilize. If you're comparing that with SAS, they're asking specifically that the utilities are being picked up by the city and cover that expense.
Okay. So that was something I thought, and I wanted to make it clear. When we hear that SAS is not charging a management fee, they are, and we have to recognize this, they are asking for $125,000 a year from us. They're calling it utilities, but it's just a way to call it, right? Glendale Arts is asking for $250,000, but they will be paying the utilities. So the difference, I just want to be clear because there's a potential misunderstanding here. The difference is $125,000. Is that, am I characterizing that properly?
If we're just speaking pure dollars, yes.
Yeah. So you can call it a management fee. I mean, Glendale Arts could have said, I want $250,000 management fee, or I'm sorry, I want $125,000 management fee, and then I want $125,000 for utilities. They could have just broken it down that way. Okay? So I just want that to be clear to everyone. And I also just want to say, you know, you get what you pay for. Glendale Arts is not throwing money away. We saw that, we got that from the Arts Consulting Group report. They are managing the money they have carefully. And so if you were to put them down to $125,000, you're putting them on a starvation diet. We're just not going to get what we want out of the theater. So the idea that, you know, somebody can come in and say, well, I can do it for nothing, or I can do it for so little. I mean, talk is cheap. But I just don't understand how somebody would be able to run this theater at such a low cost if Glendale Arts was not able to. Again, if the consultants had told us there was a problem with their financial management, that's a different story. But that's not what we're hearing. So I just think we need to remember we get what we pay for, and if we don't pay, we have to be prepared for what we end up getting, which is probably not going to be what we expect. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have a caller on the line. It is Rick Lemo. Would you like me to get that?
That's fine. Let's hear from Rick.
Rick Lemo, you have 3 minutes. Rick, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council, and I'm sorry for calling in so late. I just wanted to convey to you that we have had an absolutely wonderfully professional relationship with Glendale Arts. Now, we have budgeted money every year to support the arts because we believe that Glendale Arts is the heart of our district, because we can't give money outside of our district. And whatever success we work with Glendale Arts on has been very, very good in us promoting our district at a very affordable fee. I will tell you that in all of my conversations with our board, our well over $200,000 of support in the last few years of the Alex Theater and Glendale Arts, there is no emotional stronghold to support a third-party person. I do agree, after spending over 20 years on the Alliance for the Arts in Thousand Oaks and managing a much tougher theater, and you will know that's where Barry had moved to, they do a remarkable job of managing their money. I do believe that we get what we pay for, and it will be many years of us sitting and watching and waiting before we're going to be able to support a third-party profit maker versus the extraordinary work that has been done from our standpoint with Alex Theater. I think this is, you know, a situation where I believe the city can get what they really want and provide Glendale Arts what they really need. And I'd like to, as I had done once before, volunteer as a local business person who's been entrenched in Glendale now since 1999. Whatever I can do to work with the Glendale Arts folks or work with members of our council, I will do whatever to make certain that there's a fair deal. But please know that we're not in the business of supporting just for the heck of it. We support Glendale Arts. Anything else is going to take some long study by us before we forward any money to a third party. So thank you for your time. I hope I made it under the 3 minutes, and have a good meeting. And thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Lemo. Okay.
Ms. Mayor?
Yes,
Mayor?
Councilmember Kasakian.
I just want to, again, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Lemo for his call. I think he brings up very good points, you know, as someone who's actually, I guess he served on the Thousand Oaks counterpart to Glendale Arts and understands difficulty. And I've mentioned this before as well, that, you know, here in Glendale, we're situated in a very challenging space, challenging market. And I think Glendale Arts has done everything that we've told them to do. I think some of the fault is in councils and staff perhaps not being clear into what our asks for. There being mixed messages. I don't want us to go down a path just because the grass on the other side seems greener. Having attended a number of venues, and I've been to the Orpheum a few times, but I haven't gone to the Orpheum more than I've gone to the Alex Theater. I think that, you know, in comparison to other groups who are saying they can provide us X, Y, and Z, I don't want to be, or another future council, to be sitting here in our place and having the same conversation. I think what we ought to do is focus on our local nonprofit. We should focus on the theater as our asset, that we control it. And if there are things that we want, if people have come by and they've tried to book something there and they haven't been able to, then we ought to examine that, find out what the act was. Why was it difficult for them? You know, I'm sure a lot of people that would want to rent the Alex would want it rented at a point where it's a loss to us. And at that point, as a council, we have to make the decision, does it provide a benefit to our community? We can't just allow people to use our assets on their own terms. We have our terms as well. And so I don't have any issues with what the Glendale Arts is asking for. I think that we also need to look inwards to ourselves and be clear as to what we want from someone who runs that theater. Thank you.
Thank you, which all makes my decision even harder. Let me see, where do I begin? Well, you know, what makes this decision difficult is the fact that we've all been involved with the Alex Theater and Glendale Arts, and there are friends, there are colleagues, there are supporters, and we care about all of them. You know, I think we have to keep in mind what the goal is here. The goal is to maintain the sustainability and the stability of the Alex Theater. You know, when we're kids, let me make a kind of an analogy. We're always taught, you know, it's hard to change. Change is very difficult. And when we're kids, we're taught to gravitate toward the lines and limitations that are set by others. And when we colored, we were supposed to stay in the lines. But as leaders, I think we have to be more creative than that. And I think we have to try to take things in a new direction or beyond the limits of those lines. Progress is made by people who think outside the lines. I agree that the staff at the Alex Theater is fantastic, but you know, when we talk about the Americana and our library and our arts district, we talk about it being a destination. And I hear people saying that our theater is not a destination because of the programming. And so I don't know that it's all about the management as it is about the programming. And if we want the theater to be sustainable and stable, that we have to bring people into the theater. The numbers, whether those numbers were skewed by some events that had no people. I know I've been at the Alex Theater when there have not been a lot, it has not been an overflow crowd. So that's concerning to me. So I understand the passion, and I understand what a hard decision it is to change. Especially for those people that are involved with the Alex that we've heard from today. You know, I share your passion. You know, there are pros and cons with all of these approaches, but I have to look at what I think is best for the theater, what's best for our residents, what's best for the Alex Theater. So after hearing all of these calls, and I appreciate all the, by the way, the proposers, I guess I've said that already. But I think I'm going to think outside the box today, and this is really taking some if I may say, some courage, but I'm going to cast my vote for SAS to take over the Alex Theater, to move it in another direction. I thank from the bottom of my heart all the supporters of the Glendale Arts, and hope we can find a way, and I'm not hearing that today, and I hope that minds can be changed, but I hope that we can find a way that you can stay involved in the theater, in the Alex Theater that you love and that you worked so hard to sustain. So that would be my decision for today. So with that, I think we have we do have a motion and a second on the floor. And so I would ask for, you want to repeat the motion, Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes, I would move I want to move to have city begin exclusive negotiation with SAS. Thank you.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll
Mr.
call,
Najarian
please.
Yeah.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Absolutely no.
Kasakian, Councilmember Kasakian, can you
Is
hear
it
us?
frozen?
Yes, Madam Mayor, he is frozen.
Just shake your head. Can he shake his head?
We do not see him.
That's his icon, actually.
I see. And we cannot assume his vote, although we know what it is.
Mr. City Attorney, what would be the proper procedure at this
What
point?
should we do?
You
Can he
can
call it in, or?
we can either wait for him, or we can treat him as absent, and neither one of those is really tantalizing. I appreciate that, but I'm not really sure there are any other options.
Is our IT group working on that?
Madam Mayor, yes, they are.
Okay, let's give him a few minutes, few seconds to get Artie back in. So we have his vote on record.
You have to call him. There. You're
Excuse me.
muted.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, your vote, please, on the motion to
Councilmember,
negotiate with SAS.
Councilmember Kasakian, we do not hear you. Can you hear us? We see you, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, I apologize. The internet literally went down right as you guys were doing the vote. My vote is a no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. And with that, next item,
Adjournment.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
we are adjourned at 4:21. Thank you. And now we move to council. So I will call to order the Glendale City Council meeting for September 28th, 2021. 4:21, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Present.
Brotman,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. What's next, please?
One would be closed session. 1A, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Murphy versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 20-STCV 29677. B, conference with labor negotiators. The city designated negotiators attending the closed session are Rubik Galanian, Michael J. Garcia, Jalen Van Meiden, Matt Doyle, John Tuktayan, Amy Marin, and Michelle Flynn. The names of the employee organizations are Glendale Management Association. Madam Mayor, I do have a caller for this closed session item, and it is
Okay.
Herbert Milano.
All righty, thank you.
Mr. Milano, you have 3 minutes. Herbert, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mayor Devine, members of the City Council, as you go into this closed-door meeting with a negotiating entity for the management employees, I'd like to make the following
Excuse me,
observation.
I don't think that's the item.
It is.
Mr.
Madam Mayor.
Milano?
Madam Mayor, Glendale Management Association is one of the parties that are subject to the negotiation. I believe that's what Mr. Milano is referring to.
Yes.
Oh, in Murphy versus the City of Glendale?
No, ma'am, the labor negotiation item, I'm not sure if you have it on your printed agenda. I think it may have been added later in the week, but that's the second item on the closed session.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I thought that one was taken off. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Milano. I'm terribly sorry.
No problem. For nearly 100 years, the City of Glendale did not have a bargaining entity for city managers, and for a good reason. Managers should be accountable and compensated for the performance of their business unit as it relates to one major objective: to improve the quality of the lives of the residents they serve. But there are no clearly defined objectives on what the measures of the quality of life is for the city's residents. There is no accountability of performance to that key objective of city government, despite the growth in the ranks of city managers. In 2008, I requested copies of the city government's workforce demographic report, and I did a 10-year comparison that showed that while rank and file employees grew by nearly 3%, between 1998 and 2008, the growth of the management employee ranks grew by nearly 50%. The report was subsequently changed to reclassify several job categories such that in the future reports, the growth in management employees would not show such a disparity. All those changes occurred during the administration of City Manager Jim Starbird, the same person under whose urging the City Council passed the massive changes to the pension benefits in 2001 and 2005. Today, you can look at the workforce demographic reports and extrapolate the ratio of supervisors or managers to general employees. And you will find that for some departments, you have one manager for every 4 employees. I suggest to the City Council that the trends in total compensation, given specific positions in management, be laid out in graphs such that you can see the 15 years prior to the formation of the GMA and the 15 years subsequent to 2005. The graph should compare the total compensation of base salary, benefits, and pension obligations to the median wages and salaries of the population they serve during that period. I will convey my opinion again that it is a moral hazard to convene behind closed doors to discuss compensation to an entity for which there is no measurable public benefit and where a significant portion of the compensation is comprised of a pension obligation that the city can no longer afford. I submit that the performance of each of the city's departments should be measured via a clearly defined city strategic plan, focused on the quality of life measures of the city's residents. Basic compensation of what other managers at other cities get paid is irrelevant to the residents' quality of life. So I urge the City Council to make all these labor negotiations open to the public, to consider terminating the GMA as a negotiating entity and reverse the 2005 decision. I urge the City Council to postpone any further labor discussions concerning management compensation until you have a full understanding of the pension obligation and the ramifications that a detailed study will unveil, and that management be held accountable to clearly define quality of life measures of the city's residents. So earlier today, we heard the following themes from the diet: financial stability, lower management costs, clear measures of success, what is best for the residents. Those were the themes on your previous agenda item. I suggest that let's keep that theme going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Mr. Garcia, do you expect to report out on any of these items?
We do not, and I would note that item 1A, the litigation, will be held over until October 19th.
Oh, that's the one that's being held over. Okay,
Correct.
thank you so much. We're in recess for closed session. Thank you.